Look, the CDC guidance that they put out last night addresses some important issues. For example, for the first time, they addressed testing in schools. They talk about the wearing of masks. There's things that weren't addressed in the document, like when you might consider going towards a hybrid model of closing schools. We all want to open schools in the fall. I think there's ways for districts to safely do that, especially in environments where the virus levels have been brought down to low levels. But there might be circumstances in which school districts need to consider closing, at least temporarily, or going to a hybrid model. That's not really addressed in this document. Now, the good news is there's other documents I think local school districts can look to. States have put out detailed guidance. Other countries have as well. Finland, Denmark put out detailed guidance. Taiwan did, Israel did, and also ran into trouble. And I think that there are some instructive lessons from Israel in terms of what they did and didn't do and the problems that they have. So I think school boards and school districts are going to need to look beyond just these CDC guidelines now at this point because of the things that weren't addressed in the document to try to get a fuller picture on how to handle the fall.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? So many things to consider when you consider how many kids are dependent on lunch at school. How many parents are dependent on, going to work? If they stagger it, I mean, we were looking at some of the proposals just for us, and it's like if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or if it's morning, afternoon, that doesn't let working parents get back to work. I don't think it's like it's a half measure. It's the best we can do, I guess, but it doesn't solve the problem that we're faced with all these kids being home.
Well, look, the first consideration is the safety of the children and the teachers. And in environments where there's a lot of spread, you're going to be worried about outbreaks in the schools. And so some districts are looking to go to hybrid models. Connecticut's looking to go to 5 days a week in class and providing an at-home option for parents who don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school. I think we should make an attempt to get kids back into the classroom. I think it's important. I think a lot of states will have that opportunity, states that have managed to bring the virus levels down. But there might be ways you can, for example, go to an in-class option for younger kids where it's easier to create social distancing and force cohorting, the podding that they talk about in the CDC guidance, and then maybe go to a hybrid model for high school students who can learn at home more easily, where it's harder to de-densify the high schools and you're not going to be able to enforce mask wearing and cohorting as easily. So I think that there's things you could do across a district where you handle different ages differently as well in order to make sure children remain safe in different environments. The elementary schools typically have more space, so it's easier to maintain social distancing. In a crowded high school or middle school, might not be as easy. So districts need discretion to make those decisions. And if you look at what's happening around the country, I think you see a lot of different variety in terms of how districts are approaching this.
I want to ask you, Scott, about Texas, because we have Governor Abbott coming on. But Andrew has a question about the schools. Andrew, or where are you taking it?
Yep, it's a school question because I was talking to the superintendent of a school district just yesterday. You probably saw that in the D.C. area, for example, yesterday, or I believe maybe the day before, they've chosen now to go to all virtual, at least for some period of time this fall. And that in a lot of the major cities, at least, places like New York City and Boston and other places, the issue for teachers, apparently, and this is obviously, we talk about parents and we talk about what people are going to do inside the physical school, and maybe I hadn't given enough credence to this issue, is really about how the teachers are going to get to the school. Especially in major cities, that they usually take public transportation and the like, and that unto itself is the thing that's concerning people more than necessarily even being in a classroom with children who, as you've said, under 10 years old, unlikely to spread it in the same way. And so the question is sort of how do you think? I mean, by the way, this is not just an issue for teachers. This is an issue for anybody who's going to an office or to work and using public transport at all. But frankly, how people should think about that issue.
Look, one of the recommendations that people are giving, including myself, to businesses about getting workers to the workplace as we start to reopen things is try to create staggered start times so that if employees do need to take mass transit, they can do it at off-peak hours. They don't have to go on crowded trains. And so a lot of businesses have the ability to do that, to stagger the start time of the workday. In schools, you don't have the ability to do that. I mean, you might be able to work that out, but it's a lot harder. The school day starts at a certain time. So this is a concern. I mean, you could stagger the school start time as well to allow people to arrive at different times in the day, and that allows you to de-densify transportation for the kids as well, because you don't want to put kids on a crowded bus if the goal is to try to keep them in defined smaller cohorts. And so some schools are thinking about doing this, having staggered start times. A little bit more difficult in city schools, crowded schools like that. But these are things that districts are considering.